you have to fail. Because if you go through life and you keep succeeding and you keep doing well, then you never know your true worth. You never know your true ability. If you are a boxer and you keep fighting all the people who are ranked 100 and you're like, yeah, I got 50 wins. Yeah, because you're fighting people who are ranked 100. Until you fight the number 1, the number 2, number 3, you don't know what you're capable of. You don't know your rank.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Just a quick note from me to say thank you so much for choosing to tune in to watch today's episode. I've checked the stats recently and I was blown away to see that 93.6% of you who choose to tune in and watch these videos aren't already subscribed to the channel. Now, if you're watching these videos because you're looking to level up in your life and make positive changes, it starts by changing your environment and what you consume. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so that you're consuming some incredible, inspirational, and empowering content and stories that will help you make positive changes in your life. Enjoy today's episode and stay visionary.
Welcome back, guys. My guest today is Tej Singh. Tej has had a myriad of businesses, including a recruitment consultancy, property investing and building a property portfolio, and property mentoring, as well as most recently starting to acquire businesses like cleaning businesses and a food business that is on the horizon as well. Tej has had his own property portfolio grown from 0 to 15 in just 9 months, which is incredible, and has had over 1 million listens on his podcast as well. Tej, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So that's a whole host of amazing stuff in terms of like the highlights of what's going on, right? Who was Tej before the entrepreneur that we have today?
I was disobedient. My mum would probably verify that.
That's a great start.
Yeah. I was always wondering why, if you could do something, I couldn't do it. I was always curious and I was always analytical and always evidence seeking. So I studied biochemistry at uni, which for me, yeah, it did nothing for me. It was useless. We were partying. It was fun. Great. You know what I mean? But that analytical nature was always with me, and that evidence-seeking scientific nature was always with me. When I was young, if anyone said something, I would always be like, well, actually, where's the evidence? Where's the proof? Before I buy anything, I always read reviews. Like, I want to know and understand what makes it like that, and is it true? So that was probably a big part of it, and that disobedience to whatever it was, school, the norm, having a job, thinking, why am I working past 5 p.m. when my contract says 5? Like, I just don't, I still don't understand that. I don't understand. So there was so many, I suppose, traits that actually, when you put them together, kind of make an entrepreneur.
Okay, you call it disobedience, which I absolutely love the definition there. And it sounds like it's a combination of not wanting to do what other people tell you to do, but also being curious about what is actually going on behind the curtain. Where does that curiosity actually come from?
Good question. I think it's, I don't know where it comes from. If I look at childhood, there's nothing that would have made me particularly curious. If I look at my parents, they're not particularly kind of curious. They can be happy not to know something or why it happens. So maybe it was that. Maybe it was seeing that and thinking, yeah, but why? Why? This nature to understand things, maybe this impulse to, if something is happening, well, I need to understand why. Like these things here, they soundproof, right? But it's because of the shape and because of how sound reacts when it hits the shape. But I didn't know that till I saw them one time and was like, how does that work? And I went and researched it. So I don't know where it comes from, but there is almost a compulsion to just understand. And it could be one line. I don't need a paragraph. It could just be enough.
See, that's where I feel like we have the innate child in us that goes, but why?
Yeah.
But why? But why? And you've managed to keep that questioning or line of questioning, which has allowed you to be more explorative in, well, I guess every area of your life.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So going back to what you said about studying biochemistry, which was, it's done nothing for you. Why did you choose it in the first place?
I think it was the kind of norm. It was, I think being Indian as well, it was like, you're going to uni, kind of standard. I think my parents would have been okay if I didn't, actually, to be fair. Like, they're quite chilled, not like super traditional. So I think it would have been okay. But I loved science at A levels, got good grades in them, really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy like in a lab pipetting shit, but like I really loved the theory of science. And actually, I love biology, I love chemistry, and I love biochemistry. And so in my head, I thought, okay, I'll do that and I can get a job in science. But more importantly, I can get a job in banking, in in whatever. Because I worked out and from doing research that these kind of degrees would allow you to do other things. So I thought, you know what? I've got a backup. If I change my mind, which I do often, boom, I've kind of got a backup. So that was primarily it. I also wasn't, that kid at school selling sweets. All these entrepreneurs come, yeah, I was selling sweets at school and all that, making money. I wasn't doing any of that. I was playing Xbox. Like, I was chilling. You know what I mean? I was playing Xbox and studying, playing Call of Duty with my boys, like waiting for the new one to come. So I didn't have, that entrepreneurialism wasn't with me. My dad is a self-employed photographer, videographer, does all my bits. But it just wasn't around me. There was no one I could look at and say, actually, maybe I should do that.
I resonate with the chilling around playing Xbox. My thing was PlayStation. I used to play Pro Evo all day, every day. It's a different way of being brought up to obviously what you're doing today, right? So talk to me about the transition of what you thought you were going to do when you were a kid, studying, going into A levels and thinking about degrees and jobs and everything. And then how did that pivot into you starting your recruitment consultancy?
So, I said earlier, the signs were there of kind of like being an entrepreneur and things that make someone an entrepreneur. And as I got my first job, which I went to uni and got a good degree, King's College London, everything great. I should have got a job straight away, right? That's the dream they sell you. 40 interviews later, I got an internship. And I was like, what? So firstly, I was like, this doesn't add up. But okay, cool, whatever. Life's tough, cool. Did the internship, then got a job because of that experience. Great, the usual. They want experience, they want educate, I then got this job, was enjoying the people. It was fun. I made some good friends. Actually, some of them are now like in property and following me. So, great networking. But everyone kept working past 5 p.m. and they kept turning up before 9 a.m. And we would work with idiots. Our clients were idiots. and that's why they hired us, because we weren't idiots, right? They were inept. Like, they just were.
What was the job that you were doing?
It was medical marketing. So it was working for pharmaceutical companies doing their educational marketing. So pretending that their drugs worked and they're worth all this money, and taking a 1 decimal point, someone lived an extra day, and trying to convince the NHS they should spend millions of our money on it. So I think it was unethical. And that's kind of also why I lost faith in it as well. I read a book called Bad Pharma by Ben Goldacre, I think. Really good book for anyone to read. We all know everyone's corrupt. Everything's corrupt. We can go on forever about that. Pharmaceuticals, of course they are. And so that was also playing in the back of my mind. Like, what the hell is this? This is not the science that I wanted to get into. And I wasn't being paid enough either to like to ignore that, right? Yeah. Which happens as humans. And I just thought, all of this doesn't make sense. I then went to see the managing director, Terry. Funny guy. Didn't do much. And I said, hey, Terry, so, like our contract finishes at 5. So where do I log all the extra hours that I do afterwards? And, and he literally chuckled. He went, that rich man laugh. He goes, no. I said, what do you mean? He said, no. It's just, you love your job, don't you? I said, yeah, sure. See you later.
And you just quit.
And then, I walked out and thought, fuck this. I'm not getting paid enough to do this. I think I was on like 20 grand or something, like usual graduate salary, a bit low if anything. And then I applied for a job at the place I had an internship. I think I was on 26. So that's a big chunk percentage wise. Yeah. So I left that place. I just didn't tell him until I got the pay rise, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, went to this new place, and they were paying me 26 grand to shred paper. World's most overpaid shredder. And I was just not doing tasks that I wanted to do. The culture was a little bit toxic, a little bit bureaucratic. So anyways, again, I'm like, okay, I'm getting paid enough. I'm still not coming in on time. I'm not running for my trains. I'm not working past 5. I'm leaving. And as I'm leaving, everyone's still in the office. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I'm getting in at whatever time I feel like it. Literally, the train would be here and I could get it if I just power walked. I said, nah, man, chilling. And I was thinking, why are you being a dick? I was asking myself this. What is this behavior? Why? Anyways, got a call from the HR lady. She was scary, like all HR people. Come in the room, and then she goes, Tej, you're not performing the way you said you would in interview. We're letting you go. A month's notice, but leave now. We'll pay you the month's notice. And I felt relieved.
Were you trying to get fired?
I wasn't trying to, but my behavior was definitely going to get me fired. Like I wasn't being, but I wasn't. My interview was shit hot, and I could have performed at that level. Of course I could have, but I was here. And also with the politics, I'm again like an entrepreneur. I just wasn't having it. Like if you were trying to be snaky, I'd be like in a meeting. I'd call you out and be like, yeah, you're being snaky. Like you said this. Why? I'm very much like I'll beef you in front of everyone. Let's do it like I do now. And that does not work in any workplace. Like no matter how candid workplaces are, the snakiness in the bureaucracy has to exist. It's just, high school again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so looking back, like, of course I was going to get fired. But I was relieved. Why was I relieved? I got home, told my Indian mother. The silence it said a lot more than any words she could have said.
That's probably more scary than the HR lady.
That's more scary than the HR lady, yeah. Big time. My mom's a head teacher, so she's already got that,
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I thought, okay, what can I now do that gives me, like I wanted something where the input matches the output, right? If I make 100 cold calls, if I speak to 100 people, I want 4 sales. But if I don't do that and I'm lazy and I stay in bed all day, I want 0 sales because that's what I deserve. And that's what I wanted. And then that kind of led me to setting up a recruitment business. My friend had experience in his own recruitment business, said he would help me. I still don't have that help, so I don't know where that went. But he explained to me, very simple business, and it is. What you put in is what you get out.
Mm-hmm.
Very minimal cost. It's hard, but it's very simple to like actually carry out the process.
Yep.
And then I set up a recruitment business like within a week, I think.
The recruitment business model sounds like the original laptop lifestyle model.
Yeah.
Because you can literally have a phone and a laptop and make all the connections you need, right?
Yep.
So, and it is interesting to see how that disobedience kind of followed through all the way. So the consistency there between school, going into uni, and then seeing it in the workplace, you've been the same throughout, which is a testament to your character, right? So how did you go from doing all of that and then not having the help to set up your recruitment business to being able to set up in a week and knowing what the hell you're doing?
Yeah. You know what? I think the model being so simple really helped because it was find candidates, find clients, do new business, do client generation, build a database, and connect the two. Now, of course, in reality, the emotional control, the kind of difficulty is there, but the process is what I said to you. There's nothing else. That is it. Yeah, bits and bobs, good, but that is it. And so I think that helped massively. I think I did try and there were no books or anything really. I think there might be some now, but I watched YouTube videos. I connected with recruiters and just looked at their posts on LinkedIn, see how they did things. And, simply, I just failed a lot. I called clients and said, I've got a candidate, really good developer. I just kept messing up over and over again, which then led to me thinking, okay, well, I said that went wrong. But, I said that. And and just like really trial and error, taking time, shaping, making mistakes, cocking up, shaping my sales pitch, how I am on the phone, the number of calls I was making, how I was speaking to candidates, kind of based off how I would want to be spoken to as a candidate.
Yeah.
So empathy, and then just really just failing a lot. And then you could call it luck, fortune, whatever you want to call it. But then I had my first placement, I think it was at the end of the first month. And that was $3,000, which is kind of the average for what I was doing. And so I thought, okay, I can do this. This makes money. Now let me get better at it. Again, keep failing, keep trying, but also observing. Recruiters didn't have personal brands back in the day. And then that's kind of where, after a year or so, I started to build a personal brand in recruitment.
There's a lot of people that are listening that will either hate the idea of failing or fear it massively. What would you say to that person?
I say, you're an idiot. Because like, you have to fail. Because if you go through life and you keep succeeding and you keep doing well, then you never know your true worth. You never know your true ability. If you are a boxer and you keep fighting all the people who are ranked 100 and you're like, yeah, I got 50 wins, Yeah, because you're fighting people who are ranked 100. Until you fight the number one, the number two, number three, you don't know what you're capable of. You don't know your rank. In tennis, until you play Djokovic and Nadal, you don't know how good you are. And so if you're not failing, one, you don't know your position, you don't know what you're worth, you don't know what you can achieve, you're just middling. Secondly, if you're winning, are you really going to learn? Like, yeah, you can learn from victories. Like, oh, I won that client. What did I do? That, but come on, when you win, you're like, yeah, I won next. When you lose, you're like, the emotions kind of should make you look into it, make you understand it, make you want to do better. And it's painful when you lose a client, when you're so close to signing and they don't. That is how you get better and how you learn. Like, without failure, like, what's the point?
How did you want to fail? Where did you get the drive to want to fail?
I don't think I wanted to. I think back then I wasn't in this mindset. Back then I was in that sort of mindset of like, another one not, picking, another one not getting through. I still persevered because I think I knew that, like, anyone's success is just around the corner. But that corner could be 3 miles down the road, or it could be 0.3 miles down the road.
So let me rephrase my question then. What made you want to persevere?
I think I knew I had to. Now, there wasn't a pressure of, some people say, people said I'd never make it. And now look, I never had that. Like, my parents were like, give it a shot, see what happens. Like, my grandparents were like, yeah, see what happens, whatever. They didn't understand what the hell I was doing. I didn't really have any pressure apart from my own pressure, which was, I've said I'm going to do this. It's very simple. So if I can't make this work, like, that's on me. There's nothing here. Like, it's on me. And I just wanted to, I wouldn't say I'm competitive, but I wanted to succeed. I wanted the scoreboard, which is how much money you're making. Not the actual money, but I was more like, I want that scoreboard. I'm driven almost by, like, it's quite a good metaphor with these blocks on the wall. Like, when I have a challenge, I think of it as these blocks, and I'm like, okay, I've done one, that's 10%, 20. Every block that I've ticked off just gives me, maybe it's gamification. Maybe it's like from playing games. It's like, I want to kind of hit the milestone, get that achievement and do the next. But there was something which just said, keep going, man. Like, you've done it for like 3 months and you're whinging. Shut up.
There's something that you've said a couple of times now, which I find really interesting, which is, it's so simple. What made you believe it was simple? Is it just simply being able to see what someone else has done? And if someone else can do it, then it must be simple because they're just another human being and I can do it too? Or is there something else behind it?
Hey guys, just a quick one. The purpose of this podcast is to help you create a life you love in all areas. That includes your business, your career, your relationships, your health, and of course, travel and lifestyle. One of the most amazing travel experiences I've ever had in my life was to the Maldives last year, thanks to Simply Maldives, who organized everything from the flights, the transfers, and the incredible luxury hotels. I personally wouldn't recommend anything that I haven't tried and tested myself and had a phenomenal experience with, which is why I'm super proud to say that this podcast is now officially sponsored by Simply Maldives. Simply Maldives is a dedicated travel agency that specializes in helping you find the perfect trip to any of the Maldivian islands. So whether you're considering your honeymoon, your next romantic getaway, a trip with loved ones or family, or even kids, fill out the form below for a no obligation quote for you to see if the Maldives could be your next luxury destination.
I think it's that. I think it's also, I think it's just a logical breakdown. So if you take property investment, it's not simple at all. I can simplify and say, buy a house, do a refurb, refinance it. But it is not. There's 101 things which goes into each vertical. But when it came to recruitment, I said, okay, finding candidates. LinkedIn, Indeed, some other job sites. 3 things. Cool. Clients. Google, LinkedIn, picking up the phone. Easy. Connecting them, reading words. Like, for me, I literally, it's just logical. That is really simple. But property, doing a refurb, is humongous. There's all these things. So yeah, I think it was just my mind's very logical. It's just a logical breakdown.
So then let's bridge the gap between recruitment consultancy and then getting into property. So how long did you do the recruitment consultancy for?
I did it for about 3.5 years, and then I did it for another year. But in that year, I was contracting, so working in-house for like Babylon Health and this children's book company, doing their recruitment, getting paid a very high day rate, having fun.
Yeah.
It was just getting me out of the golden handcuffs.
So if it was a very high day rate, good money, what made you branch off from doing recruitment and going into property? And what was like the paid difference that you were looking at and the upside that you were looking at that made you jump ship?
I think definitely it's easier to make more money like day rate contracting, especially if you're in like tech. Some of them get paid like thousands a day. And if you go to Europe, you get paid even more.
Yeah, I know a couple of people getting paid £1,500 a day easily.
Like easily.
Yeah.
Come in at the time, leave at the time. No one's calling you after hours. You're a contract. Great. Taxes, obviously limited company is great. So I don't think I was looking at that. I think my mindset transformed from, okay, I've been doing this thing where what I put in is what I get out. But that means I have to put in stuff. I was like, yeah, but surely I can buy assets or something that means that I don't have to constantly put in to get out. I can put in at the start, which is cool. And then I can just keep getting it out. I can just keep sweating it for money. Because I suppose I was tired. I wasn't enjoying recruitment. I don't think I ever really enjoyed it, but it made money. And so really it was a question of turning active income into passive income, which was the main thing that switched me over. And then books, there weren't many, still aren't. Podcasts, just kind of then like thinking, okay, how would I do this? Let me dabble in a bit of learning.
What was the books or the education that made you make the jump into property? And then let's talk about how you managed to do 15 properties in 9 months.
You know what? There wasn't a single book. There wasn't a single podcast, which is why I wrote my own book and which is why I started my own podcast. A lot of the podcasts, a lot of the books were just an upsell into something, which is cool. You know, my book has an upsell at the end. It's a small one for a few paragraphs, but these were like, it just wasn't helpful. So it was probably a massive combination of all of them, going to networking events, speaking to people who are experienced and saying, tell me this, can I buy you dinner? Can I pay for your time? Can I just give me the information that I need? So yeah, it was a combination of everything.
So how did you start your property journey? What kind of cash did you start off with? And how did you get 15 properties in 9 months?
Yeah, very stressful.
It sounds it.
Yeah, it was. So I started off with £30,000 of my own money, which was cash in bank from the recruitment company. I think I probably had 80 or 90 at the time, but I only used 30. And I was going to use a bridging loan on my first deal, but it went wrong. So I had to use a family investor, which is great. And how did I start? So I actually started working with deal sources, which I now hate and think they're absolute trash, 99% of them, and like improve it as well. And so I was looking myself. I was also using deal sources, but I wasn't living near my investment area. I was like 2.5 hours away, and so I had to use some sort of external help. So I then got a deal pack. Well, I've got multiple, and this one I looked at it and thought, this is bloody good. It was on for 50. And the end value seemed to be 80k. And, did all my research, got into the spreadsheets, was just staring at spreadsheets like, oh, it sounds too good to be true, which most deals I've done actually do sound too good to be true. And, sometimes there's a reason for it, but sometimes they're just good deals, and you happen to stumble upon it. And we bought it for 50, all in, I think we spent about 13-ish, maybe a little bit more. Refurb, stamp duty, cost, whatever. I think it was 13, 14. It revalued at 80k, pulled out 75%, which was basically all of the money minus 2 or 3 grand that we left in. It's been renting great ever since. Still got it. Just put some new windows in actually the other day. And from that point, I realized, okay, my spreadsheet analysis was right. These deals do exist. Let me just buy like 3 or 4 at the end of the year. Let me just, what happens will happen. And then, because I have friends who remind me that I said this. And next thing you know, I'm doing the podcast, I'm building my brand, I'm raising money. The second deal I bought using a cross bridge on the first property and the second, which gave me more than 100% loan to value.
What's a cross bridge?
So the first property was unencumbered.
Yep.
So it was my money, my investors' money, and they allowed me to do this. You shouldn't do this without permission.
Yep.
The bridger took a charge on that, gave me a loan, took a charge on the property I'm going to buy. I took a loan, which altogether ended up being 111% loan to value of the one I was buying.
Yep.
So that was basically no money in, everything done. Some money left actually, which paid for the refurb. And then I thought, this shit works. Because I did it again. The spreadsheet said this, real life said this. Okay, cool. Let me get 3 or 4, whatever. Like, how am I going to do it? I then put out an Instagram story saying, hey, I need 54 grand, for my third deal. Blah, blah, blah. 8-minute phone call. 2 weeks later, £57,000 was in my account. Great.
Power of a network.
Power of network, power of brand, social media, documenting, showing. And this is my third deal. So I wasn't experienced, like people can raise money at any stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder, obviously, the less you have. And then from then on, it was a snowball of raising investor finance, finding deals through auctions, through my brand, through direct to vendor, through Rightmove, very, very occasionally, mainly auction.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kept happening. I'd find deals, I'd get the money, I'd get them. And that just completely snowballed into 15 in my first 9 months. At some points, I had 4 or 5 refurbs at the same time. So many so that I forgot about certain properties. Like, what happened to Bandwatch? Oh, shit. Have you been? No one's. Okay, cool. That refurb's done nothing for 2 weeks. Like, it was chaos. Absolute chaos.
It sounds like hell to deal with that many going all
200 miles away from home as well.
I was about to ask you, where's the location of those?
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereabouts did you invest?
So I invested in South Wales, and I used to live in West London around here. So it was easily 2.5 to 3 hours.
And you were going backwards and forwards, looking after the
Not as
build
much
team?
as I should have.
Okay.
I trusted builders too much. I trusted project managers too much. And this is where I messed up a lot. But I was going once a week at least.
So, based on what you just shared there, property can look extremely enticing, can look extremely sexy, and the numbers can be very alluring.
I think people make it look that way.
Absolutely. What's the reality?
The reality is the numbers can be great. It can be enticing. It can be sexy. It can go well. It can make you financially free. It can pay for everything and then some. You can have a very good life with not that many properties, obviously depending on the mortgage rates at the time. But to get to that stage, it takes a lot longer than you think. It takes more of your soul than you think. The stress levels are insane. The riskiest part is probably the refurb, and you're dealing with the most dickhead species of people, builders at this time. Then you have to refinance it and deal with lenders, or you have to sell it and deal with first-time buyers. Every single stage of it can be absolute shit, and it is absolute shit because it's 2024, and we're dealing with land reg who are dinosaurs. We're dealing with lenders who are dinosaurs, solicitors who are dinosaurs. Things just don't happen as quickly, as efficiently. English law is just like gibberish at its finest. And so there's so many elements where it can go wrong, it does go wrong, it takes longer, it costs more, it takes more of you. But people don't want to talk about that. And even when I talk about this, right, no one's going to listen to this. People right now, they're tuning off. What they just heard was 15 and 9 months, and they're gone. They're like, oh, Tej did I can do it. They're not hearing this. I promise you, they're not.
That is the scary part, right? Because you're someone who's done it, you've lived it, and you're sharing what the reality of the situation is. And my hope is that this is the part that they pay the most attention to, which is
I hope so.
which is very unlikely to be the case, like you said. But if you take something away from this, then just recognizing that there is a full journey to go through, and that it doesn't just happen, and you don't just get money given to you, especially when you're not experienced, and you have to have some kind of understanding that you know what you're doing, is essential.
100%.
So what's that portfolio looking like now? Because that was a few years ago now. So how has that portfolio grown, and why have you transitioned from property, which was to get financially free and live a great lifestyle? What's the point in now going into buying what we were talking about before, boring businesses?
Yeah, so the portfolio actually shrunk because I sold 3 of them. So I bought 2 more, sold 3 of them. One I live in, which actually is a BRR because we made profit on it when we sell it. I grew the portfolio, and I was at a point where I said, this is bringing in more than enough money. I have 2 service accommodations, so their income can jump massively, especially in the good seasons. And I did a few more properties. One I had to sell at 6k profit, which was nothing, but I had to sell it. Another one I sold at a loss because I fucked it up. I even made a loss after the sale because I said, look, any issues, I'll go back and fix it. of course, pipe start, but everything goes wrong. And then 2 of them I made just under 90 grand profit on, 2 flips. I really like flips. And so I built a portfolio. I have tenants, they're great. However, large maintenance bills that can come in sometimes can really knock the profit of a property, especially single lets. And so I saw these flips and I was doing 30, 40K a flip. And I thought, this is wicked. That is great for my investor. We're in and out quick. It's great case studies because they look the most beautiful compared to like rentals. And I get 40K at a time, if not more. I can probably do something with this money. Like whether it's buy to let, whether it's like, I just know with 40K, I can potentially make more than I can with it being in a buy to let.
So with that, especially, how do you manage the risk of doing the flip and then managing the risk of it not selling for the value that you thought it would? How do you manage that?
So a lot of that is done before the deal is done, before I don't view anymore, but before I even view it, if that is all done in terms of like working out the end values. Now, there's a lot of people who go into property. Oh, I don't know the end value. I thought buy it, do it up and just flip it, buy it up, do it and refinance. I'm like, the end value is the single number that will make or break this whole deal. And it's the number that you can't really change. And if a valuer feels like it, you're not going to get that. Like, it's so out of our control, especially on refinances. And so a lot of that is done before the deal is even purchased. When you are doing the refurb, or even when you're pricing it, you want to do it the best you can within the best budget for a flip. Like, it needs to be high end. It needs to be sexy. People need to walk in and say, wow,
like this one's done to the spec that I want.
Done.
Yeah.
No questions. Just, okay, how much do I need to offer? That's the only question I want to hear. How much does Tej want for this property?
Yeah.
You know, like they walk in, they fall in love with it. So those are the ways you can mitigate that risk. Now, obviously, if it comes to the end of it, and like I've had this with my cottage flip, it was RICS revalued at 290 grand. I had it as 240 in my spreadsheet, so I'm laughing, right?
It's 50K, nice little bonus.
Massive. But I couldn't keep it because the rental income versus the mortgage didn't add up. It's way too high of a price. The yield doesn't add up. And this is common with higher value properties. So I sold it. And we listed it for like, I don't know, 280. Didn't sell. Okay, cool. I'm already pushing it. 270. Ended up selling for like 262.
Okay.
Now, that's still above my spreadsheet, but it's still way below the RICS value, which is, I don't care, it's fine. It's still a chunk of profit. That took like 18 months from like start to finish, from getting the keys, refurbing it, to selling. Flip should take 6 to 8 months.
That's a long time, 18 months.
A very long time. It is what it is. I had to pay my investor more interest. I had to tell him, hey, we might be slightly delayed on repayment. But if I had to keep that, I would have kept it. And that's because I've mitigated the risk by knowing on a revaluation, it's not going to bring me tons of profit. It's not like, but I can still keep it. And because nothing sells, the only thing that stops something selling is the price. Anyone will buy anything for the right price. You know that.
True.
And with property, it's only price. Only.
So why move on from property and why get into boring businesses?
So I get bored really easily. Every few years, I have an expiry date of like just what I'm doing, right? I'm quite mercurial, should we call it.
This goes back to you saying that you used to change your mind all the time, right?
Yeah. Now it's way less now, and I can definitely stick to things more. But every few years, we're changing industry. Like we are. Like this M&A thing, in a few years, we'll do the podcast. I'm gonna be doing something else.
I have no doubt.
Right? Like it's just, that's how my mind works. And so that's the first thing. Second thing, property's great. It's passive. It's an asset. But then I thought, apart from my education business and the recruitment business, I've not really, now I have this knowledge, this brain, honed over many years. I've not really had like a business with staff and like a proper cash flow in, business. So I thought, let's do it. And my friend D Ludlow, you might be familiar with. He'd be a great guest, actually.
D. I've actually got a schedule a date in with him. So there you go.
And he can teach you all about M&A because he taught me about it.
Right.
So he's been doing that for a while. Him and a few of his colleagues, and so he started teaching it. And I was like, oh, man, come on, let's hook me up. So he taught me it, and then I thought I was gonna set up like a food business. I was gonna set up like a car mechanics, but I have all these ideas I'm gonna set up. But then I looked at this and thought, the same money I'm gonna put to just fit out a food kitchen, I can buy a business for. The same money I'm gonna spend setting this up on marketing alone, I could buy a business for. And mathematically, it just made sense with my network of investors and the fact that I've run businesses before. Let me not start a business and deal with the, 3 years of headache, the 10,000 hours. No. You got a business. Let me just pay you for it. Let me have the privilege. Let me just pay you for it. I've got the money, but I ain't got the time. I haven't got 3 years to do a startup now. I can't be asked. Like, maybe I will, but I'll pay you. You've done the 3 years. Thank you. I'll take the beauty that you've created, or the mess that some of these guys have created now, and I'll take it to the next level. So it just makes sense when you have funds, or if you can get funds.
I was going to say, well, there are ways of maybe even buying it without having funds, depending on the deal that you can structure.
Very difficult, but yes, can happen.
Yeah. So why did you go into cleaning?
So I was looking for MOT car garages. Now these guys are like only second to builders in many ways. Everything's cash, everything's hidden, everything's a bit too geezery, a bit too everything's a bit hidden, everything's a bit dodgy. And they want the most money for their business, and they want 100% up front, and it's just like, bro, this is not how it works. And so I did that for so long, because I love cars. I did that for so long and just kept hitting a brick wall. Got pretty close with one, just kept hitting this same brick wall. And I thought, you know what, you lot and me, it doesn't work.
It's like you being in a corporate environment.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does not. We're gonna have problems, and we did argue a lot. Me and a lot of these guys, like, we argued, and was like, well, it is what it is. And so I thought, forget it. Like, this industry is not for me. I changed industry, sending out thousands of emails, etc. And then a business broker who, if people think estate agents are bad, business brokers are worse. Like, so bad. I think I was on his mailing list or something. Sent the business over. It was on for like 70 or 80K. And instantly I was just like, nah, I'm not paying asking. Man, who pays asking, innit? And I didn't even look at, I said, oh, would he take like 50 or something? And he goes, is that a real offer? I said, shit, hold on. So I did my analysis, and I said, yeah, let's do, no, I offered less, like 45 or something. He goes, Tej, come on now. I said, okay, 48. Oh, I said, Tej. I said, okay, 50. And the reason I even considered this deal was purely the numbers. Like, most businesses are bought for like a 1 to 3.5 multiple. But you do get ones at 10, at 6, at 20, depending on like tech and whatever crazy. And
recurring revenue, all that kind of stuff
exactly
plays in.
But most boring normal businesses is that range. And when I was looking at 50, the net profit was like 45. So this is like a 1.15 multiple. So I was like, shit, all right. And then when I spoke to the seller about, okay, well, like, how does it work? How much work do you put in? And he was like, oh, I probably do like 5 hours a week, mainly admin. If there's cover, I have to kind of do things. And 5 hours a week to make 45K a year.
And all your money back out if nothing changes in 12 months.
Yes.
Pretty much.
And of course, I'm not paying for this myself. My investor's paying for it. And of course, it's 50% upfront, 50% paid over a year, I think we agree, because it's a small amount.
Okay.
So I think the final payment is soon. Maybe, the final payment's coming up, actually, because I've done all the others so far. So half the money put in, 25K or so, my investors, which I'll pay back, and I'm paying them in interest. The 25K remaining, that's from the company profits. So I've bought this business for 0.5 of the profits.
That's a hell of a deal.
That's the beauty of deferred payments. Like, deferred payments happen because we need security when we buy a business that you ain't lied to me. And so with deferred payments, it means that, if I see discrepancies, guess what? That plug is stopping. You ain't getting no deferred payments, boy. Like, we're having legal issues, serious. And that's in the terms. But another reason for doing deferred payments is because you can use the company profits to pay for the purchase. So as long as and Dee will give you incredible, he'll give you the most incredible examples on such a massive scale of this working. Obviously, with mine, it's a bit trickier because it's probably most of my profits are having to pay it. Whereas when you got a bigger company, you still make some profit.
Yeah.
But if I don't get profit for a year, boo-hoo. I've got another 30, 50 years of life.
Correct.
To have profit from it. So it wasn't even cleaning. It was the figures, the structure of the purchase, the fact that actually now I know it is a simple business to run.
I'll tell you what I love about that the most, and it's the fact that you're not attached to what the business is. It was more, do the numbers work? And if the numbers work and you can place the right people in, then actually, why not go for it?
Spreadsheet doesn't lie.
Numbers don't lie ever. That's why I loved math so much, because there was a right and a wrong answer. It's why I used to hate English, because it was all subjective and you could write 7 pages, pour your heart out, and your teacher would look at it and go, D.
Yeah.
Like, it makes absolutely no sense. Okay, so I get all of that. And like, congratulations on the success of all of that as well. You also teach, and you teach people in property, you mentor people in property.
Mm-hmm.
With everything that you've got going on, why put in the extra time to do the mentoring and teaching as well?
Because I wish I had a mentor at the time, and I wish I had a mentor who would tell me it straight, and who would be authentic and honest with me, and who would shout at me when I didn't do things, who would tell me off when I didn't do things. And so I think I started teaching almost by the demand, by being asked. And I thought, okay, like, I've got a family full of teachers, maybe I'm a good teacher as well. Started teaching, started doing it. The guys, were getting a result, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. Let me package this up. Let me have an online education offering. Let me have a one-on-one mentorship as well. And with the time commitment, with the e-learning, because it's digital and it's recorded once, there isn't really a time commitment. The only time commitment is like the new business. With the mentorship, yes, there is, but often it's an hour a month, and I have 5 to 10 mentees at any one point. So it's not massive. Financially, it pays very well as well. But when I think for me, I like to see the reward and the return on investment. And with my mentee, if they're paying me, 12 grand for a year of mentoring, and they've just done a flip and they've made 20 grand, I can say,
Well worth it.
you did that flip because of me.
Yeah.
And yourself, but ROI done. And I think for me, I like seeing that back from people, not that subjective. I like to see the math. I like to say, yeah, cool. Well, it's worth it then, isn't it?
Yeah, as long as there's a justification for it, then why not? Okay. What's your vision for the future?
World peace. No, that's never going to happen with the Western colonial war machine. My vision is to keep enjoying myself, keep traveling, keep living my best life, keep having the freedom to be here at midday on a Tuesday, who knows, on a Wednesday, like
midday on a Wednesday, midweek.
Like, and I'm gonna go gym straight after this. Like, the freedom to just do whatever the hell I want and still be happy. For me, that is the main thing. Like, all these businesses are great, and this year, like last year, I was on partying and I was just chilling and networking and just different vibe. And this year, I'm on growth, but it's not to have $1 billion empire. It's not to, I don't like live to work. I work so that I can live. And so for me, it's just carrying on that freedom and not getting sucked into the like hedonistic treadmill and this pursuit of materialistic shit.
I love that. So I've done a little deep dive into your socials, and I pick out for all my guests now 3 things that I really liked, which I just want to get your take on. Okay. First one is a quote that you repeated from Shakespeare, from Hamlet, which is, "Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so." Why?
So firstly, he copied the Stoics, ancient Greek Stoics, like everything and everyone does.
Like every book ever written on personal development.
Literally. And then Drake then copied Shakespeare, who then copied the thing. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to my logical brain as well, because you could say something could happen. You take it one way, I take it another way, they take it another way. Now, anything that happens in life, and this is so difficult to do and also difficult to understand because of how we're programmed, but we have a choice. Either we take that as a good thing or we take it as a bad thing. Oh, we lost a client. It's like, oh, damn it. No, actually, they weren't paying on time. They were irritating me anyway. This is a good thing. Or someone said something to me and I felt, a bit, slighted by that. Okay, well, I have a choice here. Do I take it like that? Or do I say, they're having a bad day, they're an idiot, whatever. Like, you can control your happiness. Again, so hard to do in reality, but by choosing the sentiment on which something is said to you or something happens, like you choose your perception of it.
I love that. You choose your perception of it. That is a golden line. Education is the key to lowering your risk. Explain that.
So if you don't know what you're doing and you're going to do a property refurb, you're going to buy a business, you never run one before, your risk is massive. If you've been taught how to do it, if you know the difference between blue grit and PVA, if you know the difference between a mist coat and the final coat, architrave and a skirting board, a builder can't pull the wool over your eyes. Less things can go wrong because in your head you're like, no, that's not how it is. That's not the process. You know, you're trying to run a business and you think you can talk to your staff in a certain way because you've never had staff. You're going to learn the hard way that doesn't work unless you've been taught.
I love that. Final one. All too often, we want to control things out of our control. We want to rule over things we can't conquer. Why do you think that we do this?
Because I think in the modern day, Instagram, TikTok, instant gratification, materialism, wanting to look better, wanting to keep up with the Joneses, we're just on this hedonistic treadmill of wanting more, thinking we need more, comparing ourselves more, when in reality, that's just not the case. We've been programmed to think this way, to want to conquer. There's a really good line where Alexander the Great is crossing a river and some old philosopher stands in his way. And one of his boys goes, "Oi, you know who this is? Fucking Alexander the Great. He's conquered the world." And the philosopher goes, "I've conquered my need to conquer the world."
Ooh. That is a hell of a quote. Okay, Tej, this has been amazing. So I always finish off on my quick fire final four. Okay. First one. What do you think is the most important or essential skill that someone needs in order to be successful in today's world?
Communication. Whether it's marketing, whether it's your team, you have to be able to communicate effectively in all forms.
The number of people I've had sit opposite me say communication is actually profound. It's well, at least there's a merit to the answer. Okay, second one is, what is your favorite or most impactful book or movie that's had a significant impact in your life?
It's not one, but it's any book by Ryan Holiday. So he takes Stoicism and doesn't convert it, but he just makes it so much easier to understand, takes all the jargon and Latin and ancient Greek away, and just explains it in such a way that once you've read it, it just changes you. So, you know, like The Obstacle is the Way, Daily Stoic, thing I read every day, but like Ryan Holiday's books, just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely love them. And it's one of those things where once you've read it, you can't unread it because of how simple it's been made. This podcast is called The Mindful Creator. What is your definition of being mindful and how do you implement it?
I think being mindful is almost another word for being aware, because you want your mind to be focused on the present, focused on what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're saying it, how you come across, being mindful without overthinking of how my audience going to perceive this. You know, is this the right message for the people who are following me? And I think being a mindful creator also means taking into account things that, you know, affect you that are not your content. If you post about finance, but there's something in the world that is important to you, you should talk about it. So I think being mindful of the world, your world, and being present and I suppose mindfulness and being self-aware, for me, that kind of plays into all of that, almost on a spiritual kind of sense as well.
I absolutely love that and completely agree. You should always talk about stuff that has an impact on you personally, because the energy in which you deliver it is going to be completely different to anything else that you talk about. Final question for you then. If you could go back to one point in your childhood and give your younger self only one piece of advice, what age would you go back to and what would you say?
You know what, it's so difficult because by doing that, you change the course of your life. And I wouldn't change the course of my life, even though, you know, ups, downs, whatever. The first thing that came to mind was going to, like, before I went to uni and saying, don't do that, go be an entrepreneur. But I enjoyed partying. I studied abroad in America. Fucking loved that. So I think I would probably go to my third year of university and say, Tej, you're not going to actually use this degree. You maybe don't need to finish it. Or if you are going to finish it, start a side hustle now. Start learning how to be an entrepreneur. Start networking. Just do something lightly to build the foundation of your future and your future career. But I met my wife in my third year. So at the same time, if I go do that, maybe that wouldn't have happened, and I'd pick her over all the other shit. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. But you know what? I don't know if I'd even go back.
I love that you're the first person that's ever said that. The first person that's very aware of the butterfly effect. Tej, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me.